Item enhancement is a key part of your progression in No Rest for the Wicked. Sometimes you'll find an amazing item off the ground and just put it on and use it, but other times you need to craft the thing you find into an amazing weapon. This is done at Fillmore's Blacksmithy and Eleanor's Enchanting. So today I'm going to be going over what these shops offer and everything you need to know to get into item enhancing and start crafting your build. No Rest for the Wicked as a game is made to support a wide variety of playstyles and class fantasies. This means if you're looking to play something new, anything you pick up off the ground that has item requirements you can equip could very well be your next build. With that said, the game is still in development, and during the early access period, the developers are rapidly iterating. They're going to be adding more items, enabling new builds, and so for future updates, be sure to get subscribed and leave a like while you're down there. For now, let's start by looking at Fillmore's Blacksmithy. So first up, Fillmore offers two services. The anvil you can craft various weapons and metal armors. Right now I have the Reckless Tallbear set, for example. This is a mesh set, so a heavy medium kind of armor, and it's crafted from a mix of copper, leather, and wolf pieces. Because, why not use wolf pieces in your armor? Then I've also got several weapons unlocked here. Some of the requirements are pretty steep, like board tusk. You're not going to get too many of those, so it could take a while to assemble something like this. These offer completely different playstyles and come with different starting runes from what you'll find out in the world. For example, the Cronus is a way to get the electric enchantment. Now, the other thing that Fillmore offers is right over here, the Furnace, where you can turn ore into bars. It takes a little bit of time, so you just put it in and let it cook. Then for Fillmore himself, this is a level 3 version. He offers buying, selling, upgrading, and repairing. Repairing, when your gear gets damaged, you come here and you repair it. Pretty simple. Now, in terms of selling stuff, I don't know, I got some junk in my inventory. I'm never going to wear this because I already have a silver shovel, so why do I need two? So I sell it to get money. In addition, I can buy stuff. This includes various ingots, some basic weapons to get you started. All of these are pretty common and can be quite good. Then you can also get a few more advanced things, recipes to make more stuff, tools like pickaxes and shovels, and then down here at tier 3, well, some tier 3 stuff unlocks. You'll start with his basic inventory up here, and as you expand the City of Sacrament, more options unlock. But last up, the item upgrade menu. This is where you take stuff that you got out in the world and turn it into a true treasure. So for example, this Vagabond Skullcap is already tier 3. It has an armor bonus and some knockback resistance. But if I got 3 armor shards and 10 soft leather, I'd be able to upgrade it, further increasing the base stats. Another example of this might be the Gnarled Saw. If I'm able to collect a bear paw, copper ingots, iron ingots, and silver ingots, I'm able to upgrade the weapon to tier 3, vastly increasing its base stats. All items have 3 upgrade levels and 3 tiers. So right now, this is a tier 1 weapon with no upgrades. If I go here and spend the copper ingots and the shards, now it has 1 upgrade out of 3. If I do that 2 more times, I'd be able to upgrade it to a tier 2 cleric's mace. If I do that 3 times, I'd be able to upgrade it to a tier 3 cleric's mace. This is how even a really low level item that you find in the early game can end up being useful enough to stick with you all the way throughout your experience. Or at the very least, your experience throughout chapter 1. I don't know if there's going to be a hard cutoff in future chapters where the stuff that you drop is just better and you're not able to upgrade and keep pace. Now, before I get into talking about Eleanor's Enchanting, I need to go over a few basic details about items in No Rest for the Wicked. First up, they have somewhat randomized base stats. This means on weapons, the damage, stamina cost, and focus gain are slightly randomized. They'll roll within a range. This means you could get one version of a weapon that has 5 damage and another version that has 8. So even if you're pretty happy with what you have, it might be worth picking up future versions and seeing how they rolled. Next up, items have different rarities. White items are the most common. They have 4 rune slots if they're a weapon, and 4 infusion slots if they're a weapon or armor piece, but no extra stats. You can think of white items as the most customizable. Then there are blue items. Blue items only have positive stats, and many of these stats overlap with infusions, leading to an interesting trade-off. Do you want to use a blue item, or do you want to use a white item and simply infuse it, allowing for more customizability? The downside here is to infuse something fully, you need 4 gems, and each of the gems have roll ranges, so easily end up being worse than a random blue item that drops with pre-rolled stats. There are also some stats, such as refill stamina on parry, which I haven't seen via Infusion. But hey, if you have, feel free to correct me down in the comments below. This is just my experience playing the game so far, and there's a lot to discover here. Then you have purple items. Purple items have more powerful stats on them in compared to blue. But these powerful stats come with a negative curse, the line in red. This is a penalty. Now, sometimes the penalty is relatively ignorable, like having the weapon's durability. You'll have to repair it more often, but as long as you do that, there's no downside. Other times, it can be absolutely crippling. For example, inflicting EXP loss when you take damage or stamina loss when you take damage. These can easily result in a cascading failure loop, whereby you won't be able to progress. Though I guess if you already reached max level, EXP loss on damage taken is no longer a penalty. So in a lot of cases, there are ways around it, and if you get good enough and never actually take damage, then stamina loss on damage taken is also not a downside. Before equipping a cursed item, read it carefully to make sure you know both the upsides and the downsides. Then last up, the rarest category of item are yellow items. These are unique or signature items. Many of them are dropped only by one enemy, and it's their item. A good example of this is the corpse-smeared blade dropped by Work the Torn, the first boss from a prologue. And this is literally just the gigantic sword that he uses to try to cleave you in two. It comes with a bunch of plague damage bonuses, it has a full moveset of 4 different runes, and it is quite powerful for how early on you get it. You can think of these items as very powerful, but not customizable, so it might not fit your build or desired playstyle. On the other hand, white items are the most customizable. Inherently, they are not necessarily as strong, but you can customize them to be the perfect tool for you. And if it perfectly fits in your toolkit, it can honestly outweigh any of the other options on the list. So when you're choosing a weapon, be sure to keep a few things in mind. Number 1, the attribute requirements to wield it and the scaling. Since there's currently no way to respec, if you can't use it or need to significantly modify your build, beware that could make you weaker if you change your mind later. Number 2, what tier is it? Higher tier weapons require less work to get them up to the strongest state they can be in. Number 3, what rarity is it? The lower the rarity, the more customization, and the higher the rarity, the least customization. Which means if you're going for a pretty easy time, I suggest using either blue or purple weapons, as they're fairly simple to get off the ground and going. You just stick an infusion on, grab a rune, and you're pretty much good to go. However, I also encourage you to experiment and pretty much try any weapon that you're able to equip, as who knows, you might find you quite enjoy the playstyle. So now, with that information out of the way, let's head over to Eleanor's Enchanting and go over some of that. So, like with Fillmore, Eleanor also sells a variety of items, but in her case, it's not necessarily arms and armor. It's staves, which are an intelligence weapon, then runes, which you can use to customize any of your weapons, and some blueprints used to craft a few things. Also, like before, you can sell stuff to her. Maybe these pants, I don't really need them. That's fine, I'll just sell them. But where Eleanor varies is she has 3 special services. First up is Enchanting. Now, enchanting can only be done on white items. For example, these Iron Fur Claws or these Liar's Trousers. So when you enchant an item, you'll change it from a white to a blue or purple. This costs you 1 silver. And so just for fun, let's do it on the Summer's Sting. So just select this, enchant, are you sure you want to enchant? The last 2 rune slots are locked. This means the weapon goes from 4 down to 2, and the last 3 gem slots, so it goes from 3 down to 1. I enchant like this. Now, if I come into my inventory, the Summer Sting 200 Greatsword has gained 8% focus on parry, and the item's weight is decreased by 27%, which honestly sounds pretty good. Just keep in mind that you might have been able to add similar effects via infusions if you fully customized the white item. Let's go back to Eleanor here and talk to her again. This time to look at Infusion. In general, I would say if you're going to be using Enchanting, you're going to want to roll the item multiple times. If you only have one of something, it's very much better to infuse it rather than enchant it. So, I only have one of the Governor's Dagger. I only have one of this katana, the Honed Frenzy. And maybe I want to enchant it, maybe I don't. Because maybe I instead want it to do something like infusing it with a gem, where I'd gain 1% to 3% of focus on damage dealt. Or I could even gain stamina on damage dealt, which would allow me to keep on swinging it longer. So let's do that and see what we roll. Like so. I've now infused the item, one of the slots is used up, but every time I deal damage to an enemy, I'll gain 1% of my stamina. Because this is a white item, I can put 3 more infusions on, allowing for quite a bit of customization. I can also add runes, which is accessed via this menu. So in this menu, you get to do a bunch of extra stuff. For example, you can extract or add runes. Right here, the slashing dash, maybe I like the idea of a slashing dash, but I don't like the last words animation. So I can just hit this, I can extract it. This will destroy the weapon entirely, but it gives me the rune. And I don't know for sure if it's compatible, but let's see if I can put that slashing dash, or maybe another rune, on my climber's pick. I just come here, I select the empty rune slot, and there you go. Slashing dash. It goes on any one-handed weapon. The fierce dash goes on, well, any one-handed weapon. Whereas something like the heat enchantment goes on any weapon at all. If something isn't compatible, it simply won't show up in this list. Now I've added it, so I can now use the slashing dash on my climber's pick. There are different runes available between one-handed and two-handed weapons. For example, here you have Juggle Strike, but you could instead do Knockdown Swirl. Heat enchantment, because it works on all weapons, does work here as well. Now, in regards to infusion, one interesting follow-up point, you can't infuse multiple versions of the same effect. So let's take this weapon, for example. I already have a damage effect, so I can't infuse fire damage, cold damage, and lightning damage. But what I can do is infuse both stamina gain and focus gain, because those are considered to be two different effects. Think of this as a little bit of a limiter to keep you from doubling down and simply put 4 damage effects on your weapon, thus automatically making white weapons the best base type for every character. There really is supposed to be more customizability in exchange for less raw power, a give and take if you will. Now, in addition to that, Tier 3 weapons are not always inherently better than Tier 1 or Tier 2. It could very well be that you want to take a rune from a Tier 3 weapon and put it on your Tier 1 weapon that you got at the very start of a game because you prefer that animation. With the development of the 100 plus weapons in No Rest for the Wicked, Moon Studios has made their goal clear. They want to support a wide variety of playstyles and class fantasies. So, higher tier does not necessarily mean better. And if you think, okay, but that higher tier weapon, that Tier 3, has way better stats than my Tier 1, don't worry, you can upgrade the Tier 1 all the way to Tier 3. It might take a little bit more work, but at the end, my experience has been the stats end up being roughly equal between a Tier 1 item that you upgraded all the way and a Tier 3 item you got as a drop. Though, currently in early access, it is really hard to go from Tier 2 to Tier 3 because I can't find enough bear paws for the life of me. Something else to keep in mind that in the game's current form, Tier 1 items start dropping immediately. Tier 2 items start dropping around level 11, and Tier 3 items start dropping around level 21. To access the level 21 content, you will have had to progress the game significantly and effectively beat all of Chapter 1. To start getting level 11 drops, you'll have to have gotten to about the halfway to 2/3 point. And so that's everything you need to know to get started with item enhancement in No Rest for the Wicked. In general, the way I do things is, first up, if I'm going to be enchanting the item, I start with that. Because maybe I get a cursed mod that absolutely bricks it, and I have to toss it away. If that's the case, then I'm going to start with the enchanting. If I'm not going to be enchanting the item, because I want to have the 4 rune slots, the first thing I'll do is quality it up at the blacksmith by upgrading it as much as possible. After that, I'm going to go infuse it and hope things roll well. And then I'll add my custom runes, maybe extract and break a couple of items along the way to build out the moveset that I want. So far, for most of my builds, I have tended to use either blue or purple items. Since I don't really mind only having a couple of runes available, I don't need a ton of diverse moves. In general, throwing a sword at things seems to work equally well, whether you're in the early game or the late game. And I like having a diverse moveset. In general, a couple of stats to keep a lookout for on any weapon. Reduced stamina costs. This is really good, since the reduced stamina cost means you can attack more times before running out of stamina, or use that stamina to block or dodge enemies. If you're good at parrying, then recovering health on parry, or possibly refilling stamina on parry is really powerful and can kind of let you go infinite. And on shields, personally, I really like the gain health on block stat. That way, when I'm blocking enemy attacks, in some cases I don't take any damage at all, in some cases I take less damage, and in some cases I just gain health, which is really nice. But that said, there's over 100 weapons, there's a really wide range of affixes that can roll, so it's best for you to customize things to your own personal playstyle. That said, if you're looking for more info on the game, I do have a beginner's guide that I recently made and a couple of dedicated quest guides that will help you fill out the vendors in the city of Sacrament. Links to those will be up in the card and down below. And that I'm also curious, what weapons have you found to be the best so far? Daggers are pretty darn good, they're short range but agile and highly effective at stabbing stuff. Straight swords are great. I use a sword and board playstyle for most of my gameplay. I've been trying a little bit of curved swords, which are also quite good. And the gnarled saw is awesome. I mean, who doesn't want to take a monster's lower jawbone and just smash it into enemies' faces? So those are the weapons that I've been enjoying and finding success with. I'm curious about some of yours, put them down below. And last up, before I go, a special thanks to my patrons and channel members for the continued support. For as low as $1 a month, you can help make videos just like this possible. And a big thanks to everyone who watched to the end. I'm glad you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. As No Rest for the Wicked continues development, I'm definitely going to be playing more. I can't wait for Chapter 2 to come out so I can experience that. And so I look forward to seeing you in a future video.